Welcome back, everybody. We are going to be going over the only, the one, the best, the ultimate random selection script that you should ever need. This is going to be a two-part video, as I will mention here in just a moment and go into details. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the intro and get started. Alright, so this video is going to be a little different. It's actually going to be a two-part video. We'll have two videos released. In fact, the first part is going to be going over just the basic random selection to get a random item, either from an array-like table or a weighted table, which is a dictionary, going to be key value pair there. We're also going to then have a second video where we're going to add additional functionality to truly make it the ultimate random selection script, as far as being able to add different items and pull different information from the table. So that's going to be how we're going to do that. I am going to be working in VS Code here because that is the way that I prefer to actually work, and most of you should too if you don't know about it. So yes, this is VS Code. I have mine heavily customized. If yours looks like this, I would be concerned because you would be basically copying me somehow. But don't worry about that. It is still going to operate exactly the same. It just looks different. Typically I don't even have any sort of sidebar open here, but I do want to just show. So we are using Rojo, so we're actually synced up with our current play session of Studio. So one thing I do have in all of mine is basically to add my character's face in here. Otherwise I'm normally a blank white slate there. And that's of course just doing this little distract game specific script, which is in our server script service down here. Alright, so if you're unfamiliar with Rojo or using VS Code or anything like that, I do have a pretty lengthy video going in depth on how to do that. I can go into how to customize VS Code similar to what I'm doing. If any of you actually want to see that, just let me know in the comments. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into this. So I use source folders within each of these services, which is a completely different setup than what Rojo uses. And I'm doing that because then all of the actual source code, any actual scripts is located in there, and then I can have like instance folders in Roblox Studio itself that contain like different instances and you know, events and stuff like that, remote events. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get this started. We're gonna go into our replicated storage in our source folder here, and we're gonna start by creating our class, our random selection class. So we're gonna call this random selection, and this will be luau. So to start with here, we're gonna have random selection is going to be a table. We're going to go ahead and have random selection dot underscore underscore index is going to equal random selection. We're going to come down here and we're going to return random selection. That is weird. I'm pretty sure I selected the right thing there, but I guess not. All right. So this starts us out. I'm going to go ahead and do something that I haven't really gone over in any of my other videos yet, but I do plan on doing that when I go over OOP, object-oriented programming. Basically, we are going to declare the type of our random selection table. We're gonna go ahead and get a little comment in up the top here. So this is gonna be a class that handles random selection from various formats. Goodness, I can't type. Formats with optional weighting. Not a fan of going over my margin here for comments, but that's all right. We'll make it work. In fact, this should be a little different. Anyways. Let's do this the correct way. And then this will just drop to the next line. This is really a whole lot of unimportant things, but go over that when we do the style guide video as well. I might have that up at some point, depending on when you're watching this, so just check the channel list of videos there and find that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do our typecast. So I'm gonna not really explain as I'm typing. Instead, what I'll do, just for the sake of time, is I'm gonna actually type everything out for specific sections and blocks of code, and I'll just speed that up in the editing process, and then we will go over what everything is doing after the fact. So hang tight. Okay, so I have declared the type of random table. Actually, I'm not done with that. I still need to finish setting the meta table here. That be set it to random selection. There we go. Okay. So basically what's happening, so this is how you should be declaring a class type. So what we're doing is we're setting all this up so when we state that the self variable is a random table type, it's going to have access to all of these values and know exactly what this stuff is even before we type them out. So you'll see how that works. It also just helps to really get the type checking and everything down really well. All right, so we're starting with a new function, right? A .new function. This is going to be our constructor. This is going to take in a variety of options for a table. So again, we want to be able to use arrays and we want to be able to use dictionaries. I've got space there. So essentially, our array can be either a list of strings or it can be a list of instances. So you can have parts, for example, or whatever kind of instance you want in there, remote events, like whatever you want to do. And then the other options are going to be a string number pair and an instance number pair. The number is going to be the weight. So if you are doing like a rarity table, for example, you would have strings for like common, rare, epic, legendary, that kind of stuff, and then each of them would have a weight percentage chance of being selected. So that's how we're doing that, and we are returning, of course, a random table. So an object of this type that contains all this. Within the new class, the new constructor, we are also getting a few variables, so we're setting those up here as well. These are going to be privatized, so they have underscores in front of them. We're checking if the table that is passed is an array, and we're saving that to either true or false, so that will determine a lot of our functionality of whether or not we're just looking at an array of either strings or instances, or if we're doing the dictionary here with the weighted tables. And then the items is going to be the actual list of items, the actual table of items, so we're just taking in all of those. And then the total weight will be used for weighted tables. Basically, it's going to add up the total weight of every item in the table. So this is really useful if you want to set different percentages up that don't necessarily add up to 100. This is where that's going to come in. So you could have something that adds up to like 169, for example, percent, right? And it's still going to allow each randomization to work and give you still a specific percentage based on what weight you have versus the total weight of all the items in there. So that's good. And then we have basically down here our get random item is going to be our main public facing function method that's going to allow you to get a random item. And what it will do is it will select based on this is array boolean of the object. It will select either to get a random item from array or get a random item from a weighted table. So that's how we're going to do that. This is just the basic functionality for this video. As I mentioned in the next video, we will also be adding additional methods below that. All right, so let's go ahead and get the new function written out here. All right, so I wanted to point this out real quick. So we're not done coding this yet, of course. But basically we're passing in an items table, right? So any table that we pass into our random selection.new will become a random table object. And again, we're expecting either an array of strings or instances, or a dictionary of string number pairs or instance number pairs. And then we're going to, of course, return that, which we haven't done yet. So what I'm doing here is with the self, I am setting the meta table of a blank table, our self table essentially, to our random selection. And what this does, and again, I'll go deeper into this in my OOP video, my object-oriented programming video, but what this does is essentially it goes through and says anything that random selection has in it. So for example, if we do random selection dot get random item, right, that's not going to exist within the self directly. So when we call that on self, it's going to say, I don't have get random item within my own table, so I'm going to check the meta table, which is random selection, and random selection will check and see, oh, I do have that, and it will run that way. So that's essentially how that works. That's the short of it anyways. Again, that goes a little more detail on that. And then we're actually casting our self variable to be a random table, and that allows us to do this auto completion that you saw here, where I can say self dot, and you can see that we have everything from our type actually in here, so it's automatically going to know what that is, and that's why that's really useful. So we're going to check here is array. So in order to make this work and get an actual value for this, we're going to go ahead and create a utility function. We'll have a few utility functions to make all of this work. So I'm going to go ahead and start a utility function section up here. You can just say utility functions like this, and then you know what, we'll make it fancy. Even though I don't normally prefer doing this, we're going to do it just for this case. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and say that this function is going to check if the past table is an array or a dictionary. A dictionary, of course, would be a weighted table. All right, so let's go ahead and get that coded. Real quick, so I am using TBL for the variable of the table here. I could use items again, I suppose, but the reason I'm using TBL instead of spelling out table is because table is an actual keyword, and that could throw some things off, so we're not doing that. Okay, so real quick, what's happening here? So we've got our isArray function, so this is checking. Again, we're using a table variable here, so this is going to take in essentially whatever table we passed in through here, because that is the self essentially, but or we'll pass in items once we get to that. So what we're doing is we are starting with an index count, and then for each item within the table, so if it's an array or a key value pair, it would be obviously the item or the key itself. So we're going to say increase our index count by 1. So obviously it goes from 0 to 1, and this is checking. So if table index 1 in this first case is equal to nil, right? So if we're looking for an index of 1, that shouldn't be our string or instance, because that's going to be a regular arrayed instance or array index. So if it's going to be a weighted table, a key value pair, or dictionary, then that is actually going to return nil if we go table index 1, right? Because there shouldn't be an index 1 in a key value in a dictionary like that. So we're going to return false, that it is not an array, right? Otherwise, we're going to return if our index count became greater than 0. So if it passes this test for each object in the table, then index being greater than 0 is obviously going to be true. So that's how we're going to return true on that. So keep in mind that this is in here this way specifically to deal with mixed tables. So if we have some array objects and some weighted objects, then this will return false, right? Because as soon as it hits in any key value pair that doesn't have an index of a number, then it's going to return false, that this is not an array. Now, that is technically not going to work out super great as far as the randomization goes, because whatever your item is going to have a specific tied weight if you have multiple items that are only indexed, and then you have key value pairs that have weights to them. It will still work, and that's again why we're doing it this way, but just note that you shouldn't be doing mixed values anyways. But ignoring that, let's move on. So our self.isArray is going to be our isArray function's return here, passing in the items that we are using for our parameter here. And then we're also going to do self dot underscore items, which is simply going to be the items table itself once we have that. And then we're going to go ahead and set up for if it's a weighted table. We'll go ahead and comment this in here. If the input table is a weighted table, we want to calculate the total weight. Alright, so for this, we're going to check first if not. So if this is not an array, then we'll go ahead and set our total weight variable here, and we're going to actually do our calculate, we'll say calculate weighted sum, which is going to be a function that we're going to make here, passing in our items. So let's go ahead and make this function real quick. It's another utility function. Oh yeah, another thing real quick that I did want to point out as well is you might notice that for my for loop here, I'm not using pairs or I pairs on this, and that is because this table could be either an array or a dictionary. Roblox themselves did a really nice job on setting their for loops up to allow them to intelligently determine on the fly, essentially, with the interpreter, whether or not the table is an array or a dictionary, and automatically use pairs or I pairs function for getting the range on that. Alright, as with our weighted table down here, by the time it gets to calling this, we should know that it is not an array and it is a dictionary, so we will be using pairs for the for loop in this one. Alright, just want to put that out there. Okay, so super quick on this one. Yep, I missed an end here. There we are. Alright, so super quick on this one. So we're taking in our weighted table, which is only going to be one of the dictionary values, of course, so we don't have to include these ones. We're going to return the number, the sum, basically. So we're starting with our sum here. We're going through, we don't care about the actual item itself, we just want to know the weights. And then for our weights, we want to check first if the weight is a number, because if it's not a number, then we can't sum it, right? We can't add it to the other numbers. So this also will kind of eliminate some of the values, which I'll show you later. They are going to get a default weight if they are not included with an actual number weight on there. However, the total weight is going to be slightly different, so we do want to be careful about that. We could also include either an assertion here or some other sort of error catch, but for this video, for now, we're not really going to worry about that. So down here now, this is going to work, and all we need to do is basically return self here. Alright, so we can actually go ahead and check that this is working. To do so, we're going to go ahead and create a script inside of our source of our server script service. We're going to call this test. I'm going to use an underscore here, and this is going to be random selection, and this will be a server script. And in here, what I'm going to do is first get our, well, I don't have to get replicated storage. Just go ahead and do random selection. The reason I don't have to get replicated storage is because I can actually start typing it here, and this is one of the nice things about using VS Code for this, is it will automatically get the service for me if I select that. You can see it right there. It even places them in alphabetical order, which is really nice too. So replicated storage.source and then .random selection, and you'll see that this gets underlined because it now knows that it exists, which is another thing that Roblox Studio doesn't do for you. And we can even see if we highlight over it, it's going to tell us what's in there. Currently we only have our new function, but that's fine. So let's go ahead and set up a table real quick. We will call this items, you know what, I'm going to do array, and we'll go ahead and do like a sword, shield, armor, right? So we'll just do that for now. Trailing comma is always good. Also, to make some space there, I could also just hit Control S to do that. It's gonna remove my trailing comma. How dare you? All right. Anyways, so we'll also do a local call it weighted. Oh goodness, I can't type. Weighted, and this will be our weighted table. And for this one, we'll do, we'll just do some rarities, I guess. So we'll say common, we'll set it to, I don't know, 60%, I guess. That's not a 6. And then we'll do rare, and we'll set that to 25%. Now mine are going to add up to 100%, but again, you do not have to actually have it add up to 100% because that calculate total weight. A total weight variable will actually work out for you anyways. We'll do epic, and we'll set that to 10%, and then legendary is going to equal 5%, I believe is the math on that. Trailing comma. Okay, so now we can go ahead and set up our random table. I'm just going to call this random table for now. And we're going to go ahead and do random selection dot new to construct this. And we're going to start, we'll pass in our array first. And what we can do to see if this is working. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say random table. Let's say items, and then we'll do random table dot items. That's not how you spell items. Goodness. All right. Items, and then we'll go ahead and also include. I think I can do a line break here actually. So we'll try that. And then let's also check for is array is probably good too. So we'll say is array, and that's going to be, of course, our random table dot is array. And we'll try another line break, and hopefully that works and not makes it look a little weird. And then the last thing we'll try is the total weight. Why not? So we'll go ahead and do total weight, and that is going to be, of course, our random table dot weight, like so. All right, so let's go ahead and give this a try and see what's happening here. So up in Roblox Studio, I'm actually going to go ahead and verify that these are in here. They are good. I'm actually going to go ahead and just do what is it? Load string. That's what I was looking for. And we'll do game dot script service dot source and test selection, and then we'll go ahead and call that as a function. Oh, sorry. Dot source. Got to get the actual source code of the script. This is just the script. We do it that way otherwise. All right, so we'll clear that, and then we'll go ahead and run this. All right, so we can see, so this is a little shortcut as well, so you don't actually have to run the game since this is literally just being handled within the script itself. So it's got our table value, which is good. It's got true, and it's got nil because we don't have any total weight because this is an array because it is true there. We can also do just a straight print. So I'm just going to adjust this in here as well. We'll just say print random table dot underscore items as well. And I'm going to remove, so this does do the new line, the line break, which is nice. So I'm going to remove the items. You didn't see it, but I'm going to remove the items from this print. I'm going to have a separate print because then we can run this and get the actual table itself and see the items. Okay, there we go. So that is working. Let's go ahead and change this now from our array to our weighted, and go ahead and see what happens when we run that. Again, we'll clear this and run this. So false is true, the total weight is 1 because again we added up to 100%, and we have our different things along with our weights. Okay, so this is working so far. That is the new constructor working. Let's go ahead and get back to our actual code here, and we're going to go ahead and go back to our random selection, and we are going to add in the other functions here so we can actually get a random item. That will do it for wrapping up this video. All right, so let me go ahead and start with the method to get a random item from an array specifically. So we'll even say that method to get a random item from an array. Very good. All right, so let me go ahead and get that coded for you. Okay, so real quick, couple things. Number one, you'll notice I'm not using a colon here, and the reason I'm doing that is because, let's say that I don't have that in there. If I were to try and call self in here, right, because when you use the colon, the first automatic parameter that's passed in is going to be the self, the object that is calling this function, right? So if we did random table colon get random from array, it's going to pass the random table into it to do that. But if we type in self dot here, you'll see that it only kind of knows what's in there, right? But it doesn't actually have like all the values and stuff from the actual type. Whereas if I were to explicitly say that self is a random table and we pass that in here and we hit dot, and you'll also notice that VS Code is intelligently saying, wait a minute, self is a redefined local because it's passing self in automatically. So it automatically knows that, which is nice. Another thing that Roblox Studio would not point out to you. So we're going to use dot here and pass in self explicitly so we can tell it that it is a random table. And that way when we say self dot, you can see that we have access to everything, even things we haven't written yet, like these two functions here. All right, so that's why we're doing that. Otherwise, we are getting a random seed, and for this we're going to do our final utility function here, which is, we'll go ahead and state we're going to just generate a random seed, and we're going to use the current tick at the time the function is called, and some large number. Alright, so you'll see what this means here. Okay, so super quick, what this is doing, we are just straight returning, we're creating a new random object, which is why we're returning that there. So we are taking tick, if you are unfamiliar with what tick is, let's see if it shows me here, there we are. Returns the amount of time in seconds since the Unix epoch according to this device's time. So if you don't know, like every OS and everything is keeping track of the number of seconds that have passed from things like January 1st, 1979 or something like that. And that is essentially how the world kind of keeps track of time on computer systems. So that is the Unix epoch there. So this is returning the current tick whenever this is done here, and then we're using modulo 1, so mod 1 of that to give it a little extra cleanliness, and then we're multiplying that by 1 to the power of 10 essentially. So this has 10 zeros after this 1. If you didn't know that, you can write that. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, that is the same thing, right? And if you wanted to add in your commas here, you can see that this is actually 10 billion. So that's what we're adding in on top of that there, and we'll do that again. So if you didn't know you could write your numbers like that, large numbers like that, you can. Okay, anyway, so that is what we're using here. So we'll say generate random seed. All right, so we're gonna use this. We'll say our item count. We're going to save a variable here. This is going to be the length of the item array, right? Because again, we should only be passing an array into this if we're using the get random item from array, so we can get the length of that table. And then we can say if the item count is 0, then we want to return nil because there's no item to return. The table is empty essentially. Otherwise, we're going to get the index. This will be a random index, so we'll say our random number, and we're going to get, this is important, we need to get the next integer. To get the next number, it's going to give you a float value, and obviously indexes for tables aren't float values, they're going to be straight up integers. And so this will give us an integer we want between 1 and the item count. So Obviously, however long or however many values are in the array will be the max number there, so that just kind of gets a random number from that based on our completely random seed that we have there. And then quite simply, we're going to return self dot items indexed at the index value there. And so whatever item that is going to be returned. So hopefully that's clear. We're also going to go ahead and do our method to get a random item from a weighted table. And then later on, of course, we're going to have a, this will be the public method to get a random item, and this will be based on the table format, so whether it is an array or a weighted table. All right, so let's go ahead and write the weighted table format now, or function now. Okay, so with this we are getting another random seed, and then this time we're setting our random value to random, and this time we do want next number, not next integer, and we're going to multiply the next number by our total weight. So this will allow us, obviously, if we're doing 100%, then it's going to be multiplied by 1. If we're doing less than 100%, then it goes less than 1. And then if we're doing more than 100%, then it goes more than 1, so it's always going to kind of be relational to each other. We're setting a running total here, starting at 0. This is basically going to, as we go through, continue to add up for each weight of the items. And then we're checking if the random value is less than or equal to whatever the running total is, then we return that item. That's how we're actually getting the specific item there. And then we are including a fallback in case of rounding errors, as I put here. And essentially just checking if weight is greater than 0. So if there's any sort of rounding errors and this, for whatever reason, does not return an item, we're going to perform a second check based on that and basically just return an item anyways. That way we're always returning an item if we can. If for some reason then this also fails, then this will return nil, which is why we have that there, just like with the array, that you can still get a nil return on that as well. All right, so real quick now, we can actually create our public method. I can do this in real time because this is going to be super simple. So we're going to take our random selection dot get random, there we are, cannot type, get random item, and this is going to take our self, which is a random table, and then we are going to return, same as always, a string or an instance or nil. And what we'll do here is real simple, we'll just check if the table is an array. I don't know why I'm typing table there because I'm saying the word. I cannot. All right, there we go. Then we're going to just return self. We're going to run the get random from array function there. So the return value of that will be returned. Else we're going to return self and get random from TT's in there. Random from weighted. All right, so that's essentially how that works. So let's go ahead and give this a test by going over to our test script again. All right, so now I'm still gonna go ahead and print these, but we're also gonna go ahead and get some other objects now. So we're gonna go ahead and this is gonna seem weird, but I'm gonna essentially just print a line here to give a little separation, and then we'll go ahead and print the return of our random table get random item. Don't know why I put a space there, but I did. All right, so that will print the result of that. So let's go ahead and check that out. This is of course our weighted table first here. We'll clear that, we'll hit enter. We have attempt to call missing method get random item of table. All right, so real quick, let's test if get random from weighted is working. Since this is a weighted table right now. So this is one of the reasons we actually include that in there. What could be happening, so we are getting all this and then the get random is not working, and I wonder if that's because we're trying to run it through the load string as a function, as opposed to sometimes if you do this, it doesn't like how requiring scripts works. So we can run this to see, yeah, okay, so running it works. So we got an epic item that time. That's pretty good. Especially considering epic is what, 10% chance? Okay. To make this a little better at checking, let's do something a little bit different here. For this one, I'm gonna say, okay, so that will continue to get a random item for us. So we'll go ahead and run this again now. Oops, but not this, because that apparently doesn't work. So we'll just go ahead and run. Let me see, we got a rare item twice. Common, common, common. Very good. So we can check to see that our numbers are coming out relatively okay, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But first, let's go ahead and check now that get random item is working correctly, because that is the main thing that we're supposed to be doing there. So if we go ahead and run now, okay, so that is also working, very good. And now we should be able to go ahead and change this to our array and check that again. See if we can get the shield at all. There it is, okay. All right, so that is working properly. As I mentioned, there is a way you can check now with the weighted table in particular, if we want to determine, like, I'm gonna set this to 2 seconds so it's not overloading too much, but basically I'm gonna say local count equals 0. This is gonna count how many times a specific value comes up. So we'll go ahead and say local iterations, and I'm gonna set this to something well, we'll set it to something small for now. I'll show you the kind of difference here. I'm also going to say local value equals, and we'll do this as common first. We'll see how often common comes up. So to do this, we're going to say for, we don't care about the index itself. We're going to set it to 1 and put it to the iterations, so the number of iterations due. And then we're going to go ahead and pop this up in here. And then we're going to say if, actually we don't need that to be printed. We're gonna go ahead and do we'll set that to result. And then we can say if result is equal to value, then we'll increment count here. And then once the for loop is done, we'll go ahead and print count. I don't know why I did it that way. We'll go ahead and print count. All right, so what we should see when we run this, if this is typed correctly, is around 60%, because we're doing obviously our common. We set that to 60%. So we have 6, 7, 3. Why is it giving us these numbers? Well, that's because that's how many times out of 10 that it's done there. So what we can do instead, to make this a little more clear, is we can actually go ahead and divide this by the number of iterations. And then I'm going to wrap all of that in parentheses, and we're going to multiply that by 100, and I'll even go ahead and surround all that like that, and we'll come in here and make this even additionally pretty. We'll put a % sign at the end in our backticks for a formatted string. If you're unfamiliar with how to do formatted strings with backticks, you might have noticed I've been using them a little bit here and there. But they're super useful, super helpful, only exist in Luau, Roblox's version of Lua. They've added that in that way. Regular Lua, you still have to use a string.format for special formatting strings. Anyways, let's go ahead and run this now, and we can see with 10 iterations, we got 50% instead of 60, 90%. That is quite the swing, right? There's a 60% there, 60%. So why is that giving us such a wild swing like that? Well, let me show you. That's because we're only doing, that's the wrong one. We're only doing 10 iterations, right? If we bump this up to like 1,000 iterations, you'll see that this actually will give us a much larger sample size and therefore a much closer result to 60%. It is still going to sway a little bit here and there. A lot of 6/9s, that's nice. And then if we wanted to get even more accurate on how far we're doing, we can go ahead and do 10,000 iterations, right? And now this time, this is typically how I would test this, is at 10,000 iterations, just to make sure. So again, we should be seeing close to 60%, and you'll see that it's probably going to drop to 59 and maybe go up to 61, yeah, and some change on both, but it would be unlikely to see a 58 or, as I say it, there's a 58 there, and unlikely to see a 62, but it will be much closer, and we can see that that is working. And just to verify real quick as our final thing, we can change this to legendary, and we'll go ahead and see how that works out. And now when we run this, how many times are we getting legendary? It should be around 5%, recall, right? Yeah, that is 5% there. And sure enough, we're getting right around 5%, mostly 5 point something percent for the most part. 4.97% is basically 5%. And of course, wherever you're seeing less here, that means the other ones obviously have a higher return on that. So, all right, so that is it for this video. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing 2 videos to make sure that we are covering not only what we have with the random item selection, but we can also go ahead and add a bunch of additional methods and functionality in there to get you guys all set up with the actual ultimate random selection script. Go ahead and make sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe to the video. Can't subscribe to the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want more videos like this, let me know. I am still going to be doing my tutorial videos as far as just teaching how to script. We're almost into the advanced course now, which will include a lot more stuff like the things that we kind of covered here. Again, object-oriented programming is one of those. A deep dive into tables is another one, which is how I can accomplish a lot of this stuff. Otherwise, I will see you next time.